Hello and welcome everyone. This is our Dungeon Fog Midsummer update. My name is Till and I am the CEO of Dungeon Fog. And tonight we don't have Guy. Oh, my glasses are reflecting a bit. I hope you can live with that. Tonight we're going to do it without Guy, our beloved host. He usually is here, but he is on summer vacation, which means that I am going to do it myself. So please bear with me and let me know if the sound works, if you can see me, if you can hear me. And as always, if you have questions, please ask them. Just make sure that I can catch them, which means put a big question in front of it. And I will make sure, or at least I will do my best, to try and catch them so I can answer them to you. As usually, we are going to talk about everything that's going on in the development space of primarily Project Deios, and then of course of all the other stuff that's happening at the company. Okay, I can see chat coming in, which is great. So chat is working. Hi everyone. I hope you have a great time. I hope you have a great summer. Who do we have here? We have Laura here. Hi Laura. Wilson, Nicholas, Dergix, nice to have you here. Welcome, 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 welcome. So what do we have here? Midsummer. Well, yes, it's kind of in the mid of the summer vacation season, which also means that there are a lot of vacation transitions currently going on. So we're a bit slower in summer as usual, which doesn't mean that nothing has happened. Quite the contrary. I have quite a couple of cool things to show today. But generally speaking, I just returned from my vacation, and I know that the team is going to be on vacation in August. So things are a bit slower over summer, as usual. We're here in Austria or here at Dungeon Fog. Okay, I think from what we've learned the last stream, people enjoyed that we started with Deios first and then went into battlemap news, which is great for tonight's stream because there aren't a lot of battlemap news. So we're going to focus on Deios primarily. And of course, I have quite a nice demo with me that we're going to look into because the recent patch, the one that came out 10 days ago, was quite massive and brought a lot of changes, which I think were amazing. So we're going to look into that. Okay, so let's go through the regular updates as we have them, or the regular news. That means I need to switch to news and updates. There you go. More Deios works for me. Yeah, for me too. Right. Okay, company news. Well, as I said before, in terms of battlemap news, not much not much drastic is happening at the moment. Our artist Tony is currently on vacation, so we have a bigger update, bigger asset pack planned for somewhere between end of August, mid September, but we have to wait until he's back. The big thing that's happening, and we're kind of pushing to finish it internally before everyone leaves on vacation, is the infamous account unification that we have been working on since the start of the year. Testing is done. Now we just need to make sure that everything is connected. Database migration is ready to be done too. So the current timeline tells me that by the end of August, the start of September, we're actually going to migrate the accounts. And the way that, which means, if you have no idea what I'm talking about, by the way, with Deios and the Kickstarter campaign, we had a separate account system. So if you have a Deios account, you might have a completely different login than you have when you have battlemap editor and asset management and so on and so forth. And we said, well, that's not going to be very useful in the future. So we're pulling those into a new, better authentication and account system that we've been building. That is almost done. And the only fear that we have, or the only thing that we're a bit anxious of, is that through the migration of those two, we might accidentally double up accounts, or we get kind of false positives somewhere. So the way that you can help us is, if you have Deios and if you have battlemap, make sure that those two accounts that you use share the same email address, because our migration script will run through the email addresses as a primary indicator. And if you have two separate email addresses, one for Deios, one for the battlemap editor, that actually might lead to have to our system creating two separate accounts, and then we have to manually merge them. So you can help us if you go in there, check and make sure that they share the same email address. You can change the email address, and once we run the migration script, there's going to be a warning beforehand, and again, the warning is somewhere around the end of August. So before you leave on vacation, make sure that you check your accounts and you unify those emails. That will make our life a lot easier. Okay. Nicholas, I saw your question and I will come to it in a second. Right. So, with that said, I think we can move forward into, oh, right, that's the next slide. Just a heads up, we switched from, at the start of the year, we switched from a monthly stream to a bi-monthly stream, like a bi-monthly developers update, which means in August there's not going to be mapping it out. The next one will be on September the 24th. So mark that in your calendar. Don't forget to, I don't know, bookmark, follow our YouTube channel so that you get the notification once it starts. And then we will be back in September with even more news in regards to all the fancy stuff that's happening in fall for us this year. Right, now let's go into Project Deios and let's have a look at what is going on at the moment in terms of development, in terms of project planning, and what are we going to do in the switch between Q3 that we're currently in and the upcoming Q4 that we're already planning for. So the best way to visualize it for you was to show you what is coming up next, which means what is coming up in August and in September, and how much work has been put into those specific tasks already. So you kind of see the task that is planned, and then you see an estimation of where we are roughly in terms of development progress toward that goal. So first is the asset update. As you might have already noticed, we're trying to push asset updates on a monthly basis, or with every major patch that we put out. And the next one is going to be, as per request from a couple of users, is a city map desert pack. It's not specifically city map desert pack in terms of, we have a ton of, I think, nice desert buildings. What we're lacking is if you want to build something like ancient Memphis, like pyramids, statues, sphinxes, like more ornamental buildings and ornamental structures that help you to create really nice, let's say, desert kingdom cities, right? I already have a couple of assets there, but Debbie, who's doing the assets, also has left for her vacation, and it's not enough to show, especially since it's still pretty rough at the moment. And we're going to, once she's back, we're going to revisit what she has handed in, and then we're going to refine it. So I expect by the end of August, with the end of August update, we're going to release that one. And now we also can jump to the question that Nicholas has asked. The question was regarding the Asian world map assets. Do you have any news on the single buildings? Yes, I do. And that's my bad. you have brought that topic up a couple of times already, and it has been sitting on my. I think even Ilya might have it already. We just forgot to push it out there. We had a couple of very nice buildings, like building compounds that you could put on world maps, and you've been asking for having the single buildings in there, and I need to double check if they probably haven't even made it into the world map editor already, and if not, thanks for the reminder. I will keep it in mind, hopefully, and I will make sure that you get those buildings because they exist. We put the compounds out there, but not the single elements of it. I hope that answers your question, Nicholas. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what performance and cleanup means. And we're going to look at the patch notes of 7.8 that we've handed out 10 days ago. With that, I think we did a lot of good work in terms of biome progress and in terms of general user behavior and structure. We're going to talk more about that. Which means that in terms of the way that you work with biomes and the way that biomes interact with objects on the map, we're, apart from probably a couple of quirks that might be still tuned, mostly we're happy with the way the biomes work. So what we're going to do in terms of biomes is, if we find something that is still, or if you feedback to us, again, please make sure if you have feedback, if you feel like something is not working as intended, or you have an idea how to improve on the usability of biomes, join our Discord and give us feedback on that, because that's super valuable. And a lot of the things that went into 7.8 were actually based on feedback you gave to us. But generally speaking, we're happy with the state of the biomes. We're happy with how they work, how they interact, how you can interact with them, especially after 7.8 went out. So for 7.9, what we're doing is we're putting a lot more effort into polishing, and especially performance polishing. We know that on bigger maps, the landmass creation is still very slow, which simply is due to the fact that we're creating a ton of nodes for each landmass, and to create those nodes based on the rough shape that you have given us, that's too slow. And we already know, we have ideas how to approach that, but it just needs testing, and it needs a bit of improvement. And when I say we talk about we're working on performance, that is to a huge extent loading speed and interaction speed when creating stuff on big maps, because the small ones like the region and to some extent the continental maps, I think they work quite fine already. But when you go moon-sized or world-sized, it's still very, very slow if you're trying to create a ginormous landmass on the full stage itself. If you're working on a smaller scale and you're kind of extending, it's fine. But if you're trying to generate a couple of thousand points at once, that's slow, and that needs improvement. And along with that comes a bunch of other stuff. For example, what is currently on Ilya's desk, what I'm going to show to some extent tonight, is bringing back the regions. We've called it the regions panel in one of the initial releases. It has kind of changed into what we call the organized panel. We're still looking for the perfect name for it, but generally speaking, it's the sidebar that shows you what objects are on the map and making it easy for you to navigate to a specific object group and interact with that, not by clicking on the map, but by clicking on something like a list view. And that is work in progress. That's something that Ilya is currently working on. And that is going to be hopefully done Well, probably within the next 14 days, which means it is going to make its way into our August update, most likely. Not sure if the whole landmass thing will find its way into the August update. It might be. That's why it's kind of extended into September. It might be that this is just more work, and it might be that this will part of a September update. Right, what else are we doing in terms of performance and cleanup? I do remember that I had a list. Should have probably prepared it for here. Let me just quickly think. It's the land masses, it's the regions. Oh yeah, right. It's things like changing the texture on the water level. Making sure that you can change a texture while selecting a texture. It's basically, we're missing the widget, the texture selection widget, in our toolbar, and that needs to be coded and included. And once we do that, we will also, while we're doing that, we will also look at other things that you have reported to us. For example, when we're touching the whole stage, well, the whole stage construct that defines the map stage, where you can then also change the texture. While we open that up and rework it, we will also look at means to resize the stage, because we've heard from you a couple of times that you would like to change the map size while you work on it, which is similar to the way that we're doing it in the battlemap editor, respectively, adding more space to it, or probably reducing the space. So that's another cleanup package that's working on. I saw your two questions. I'll come to them in a second. Account unification, as you heard before, is purely interface testing at the moment. We do have to test migration a couple more times to make sure that actually our scripts don't freeze when we try to merge a couple of, like, it's probably 230, 400,000, I don't know. It's somewhere, it's a big number. We're trying to merge all those accounts. We have to make sure that the databases don't freeze on the migration script, but generally speaking, that has been tested a couple of times. That works, that has been optimized. So now we just need to make sure that when you click through the interface, all the functions call the new authentication properly. And that is what is keeping us from doing it right now. And the second thing that's keeping us from releasing it right now is because we don't want to release such a big thing when A, our devs are on vacation, and B, probably a lot of you guys are on vacation too. So we said we're going to wait until the start of September, and then we're going to do it, because then everyone's back in the seat and ready to click a couple of buttons if necessary. Right. So what that means is, in terms of our release schedules and what's going to happen in fall, is we are the closed beta launch for end of September, start of October is actually a pessimistic thing that I put here. I think we're going to do it earlier in September, but I didn't want to overpromise things, so I put it somewhere between September and October. And closed beta still means nothing more than you might most likely already have a Deios application, and this is just a benchmark for us internally to say, do we have finished all the crucial and important things that we want to be ready, so that we internally can call it a beta version of the software. And you are going to get, like, you constantly get updates with every time we release a patch, and the auto updater gets updated with new stuff. Then you already receive new things. So closed beta means that apart from you who already have access, no one else is having access until then. And then there is going to be a preparation phase, which again is pessimistically aimed at November. So there's a lot of buffer I put in there. It's probably earlier, where we say, okay, we feel confident enough with the software that we are actually going to open it up. So not only you have access to it, but everyone else has access to it too. And I'm going to talk a lot more about that once we are getting ready for it. Right now, the interesting part for you guys is basically that we think that somewhere between the end of September and the start of October, pessimistically, optimistically, a bit earlier, Deios has reached a state where we feel confident enough to call it a beta state and not an alpha development state anymore. Okay, so there was a ton of questions in the meantime. I think I probably have answered a couple of them already, but I'm going through them. You said you are very happy with the progress made so far. How confident are you that the September update will be the last one before entering the beta stage? Well, as I said before, it's a benchmark. It's kind of a milestone for us that we check internally, where we say, are we confident enough to call it a beta? And I think we're getting really close to that. It is a soft edge, so to say. There's a lot of, and I've seen in your question, there's a couple of things in there that personally I would like to see done before we call it a closed beta. I'm not sure if we can simply make it in time. Like, for example, the linking between World Map Editor and City Map Editor, that actually is on the list of our cleanup stuff for 7.9, but it's not on a top priority. So it is basically, when we get all the other stuff done, we're going to address that too, because it's not super complicated, but it still takes probably a day or two from our developers. And if we can spend those 2 days on something more crucial, we will do before we do that. The district tool is definitely not going to be a closed beta or even an open beta thing, I think. The district tool is a cool concept, and we did some experimenting with it. But to be honest, when I look at the remaining rest of the year, what we want to do is we want to make sure that everything is as stable and as well performant as possible. And we're going to we're going to talk a bit about what's on my sheet here. We're going to address the asset manager and the battle map integration before we actually revisit the city editor tool, because I don't want to. We're going to talk more about that once we talk about the actual battle map integration and what we're doing there. But in a very short kind of condensed description, what we did was we switched from world map, which was not finished at all. We switched from world map to city map because we saw a lot of synergies between the tools we want to realize in the city map tool and the tools we want to later then kind of take over for an improved world map tool. And that's what happened until the end of last year, and then in the beginning of this year, and so on and so forth until today. And the same thing is what's going to happen with the battlemap editor integration and the city map tools. We're seeing a lot of synergies in the way that we've built the tools that will work for the battlemap editor, but then from what we build on the battlemap editor, we'll have a kind of an echo effect back on the things that we want to do with the city map editor. So we think it makes more sense to start with with a base city map editor, battlemap editor integration, and then when we refine those tools, we come back to things that also echo out into the city map editor. And the district tool, for example, is one of those things. If we open that up, we might spend probably a month or two just writing the new district tool. But if we have a lot of learning from what we did with the battlemap editor, there's probably a lot of tasks that are either partially checked off or at least on our kind of awareness list when we transition back to the city map editor. I hope that answered that question. So yes, political climate layers and so on and so forth. Those, for example, those are things that I would like to see, at least for the open beta launch, to be implemented, because at least I think the political regions might be really helpful. I've been missing them for my own maps a couple of times, and I think they would be really helpful. So there's no promise here, but I think they might make it onto the list simply because this is, in terms of world map or region making, this is quite a versatile and useful tool that a lot of people will need. Yes, what else do we have here? Star maps, solar system, 3D map projection. Yeah, okay. So the solar system concept is already, like, we had that. And I think, again, I would say with the battlemap integration, I don't know if you've seen the things that we did for battle maps where you could create kind of space field maps. I think there's a lot of, again, synergies there where we could use that. It is, however, the whole solar system thing is on the back burner until we actually have the battlemap integration ready. Secondhand, thank you very much. Right. Okay, so enough rambling. Unless you have more questions about the general timeline and things that we want to do and things that are planned, I think it would be really cool to look at what we have done and what has came out. And if I am not mistaken, there is the patch notes. So if you don't know, whenever we release something, we actually have patch notes on our website where you can look up all the stuff. And especially for this last one, there's so much on there. I'm not going to go through it line by line, but I would recommend reading it, because if you've been using Deios for your maps, there might be a couple of changes in there that might surprise you, simply because probably interactions have changed. So generally speaking, if you go to dungeonfog.com/changelog, you will find all the updates. And that's not just Deios, that's whenever we push an update, might it be the battlemap editor, the asset manager, Deios, or general website or server stuff. Whenever we kind of do a patch or an update, we're releasing that to the changelog. And you can find all the things there. The most important thing that we did, I think, apart from just doing general biome updates, was we actually paid a lot more respect to the, I'm going to call it set index tonight, but it is going to change soon, because we've learned and we've understood that apart from web developers, probably nobody has an idea what I mean when I say set index, or what we mean by set index. So it's going to be called layers or layering or sorting, something in that regard. But we made a couple of very important changes there that neatly tied into stuff that you guys have feedback to us through your Discord feedback, where you were messing or playing around with the biomes, and the way that they interacted with the stuff that you've been doing was not straightforward enough. And with that said, I think it's much easier to show than to tell. And we are going to switch into, and I'm going to go full screen here. We are going to switch into, what's happening here? I don't know. Well, whatever it is. Oh, that's me being not fully transparent. Okay. We're going to switch into a map and showcase stuff. So first of all, I'm going to create a new one, and we're simply, for the sake of it, we're going to call it layer demo region map, that's fine. Okay, so generally speaking, I'm quickly going to construct a map here for us. That's nice. I'm going to use that. And we are, well, let's start with mountain biome. And a couple of things that are new, a couple of things that have been worked into. So this is, as always, this is a test build that Ilya has created for me. So don't be shocked if there are kind of interface elements that you do not see in your Deios version yet, because we've added a couple of things in there. But I'm going to use that to A, show what's coming, and B, explain what the whole layer thing is about. Okay, so first of all, you might notice that we have to the density slider and the height slider, we now also have a fall off slider, and that one is on behest of users who wished that you could define a better fall off on the difference between high mountains and low mountains. So the smaller the fall off is, the more high mountains are put in there. And the bigger the fall off is, the more it tries to transcend from high to low terrain in here. So I think that is a very useful slider that you can use to define if you want to create a bunch of very high mountains and without the trees, or if you want to create kind of a nice transition with big and small mountains. And it's not finished. It's still like Ilya and I have been sitting today and have been tweaking it a bit, but it's getting where we want it to be. And yeah, and I think that's fine, right? So we're going to improve it a little bit to make sure that the curve is more smooth, but generally speaking, that's okay for now. It's getting into the right direction. Okay, and then let's say we have a forest here, right? So here's a couple of things that we're still tweaking and working. Generally speaking, those two share the same set index. In other words, they're sitting on the same layer. When the renderer comes in and tries to decide what to render first, like what is above what, they're sharing the same set index, which is 0 and 0. And the result of that is that when you kind of move them into each other, there's not a priority in there. Thank you, Nicholas, who just said that the mountains look a lot more usable now. And which means, and that's a complicated one, that's why we're still tweaking around with it. The reason why we introduced the set index for this is A, you somehow have to decide, or we have to decide basically, which base texture overrides which base texture when they share the same set index. So what you could do is you could say, no, I want the forest to be more important, but the problem is now the forest overlaps the mountains. So that actually is something that we're still tweaking on, where we say, okay, wait, we have to actually treat it in a way where we say, okay, the set index of a biome always treats all the assets on the same level, on the same layer, but it sorts and prioritizes only the brush that's beneath it for a better sorting. And I think that's the only way we can do it, frankly speaking, without making a super complicated interface there. Right, okay. So generally speaking, they now share the same set index. So the way that they're sorted right now is by order of creation, which means that if they both have the same set index, they share actually, we use the order of creation to sort them. And that's not that's not a good way to do it for you guys, because no one will remember the order of creation. That's not something you want to use. What you want to use is you want to use a simple number and say, this is more important than this one. So the forest needs to be rendered before the mountains, but not the forest over the mountains, just the brushes. Okay, but, and that's the cool thing, the set index now also plays with other objects like roads and rivers. And that was, again, that was something that you feedback to us, where you said, look guys, I would like to have my biome, and I really like the mountain range, but if I now start to draw a river, I saw your question, we'll come to it in a second. But now I want to draw a river without affecting the existing biome. We said, okay, probably the best way to do it is to use the layering. So let's say, okay, let's start with a simple one. They share the same set index, which means they're all on the same layer. This one is, let me select and let me double check. This one is layer 0. This one is layer 0. So they're all on the same layer, 0, 0, 0. So when I do a river, what we are going to expect is hopefully what we're going to see. And that is the river is affecting those biomes. And yes, it is. Okay. So that might be a wanted thing where you say, okay, that's pretty cool. I'm going to put a lake in there and I'm happy with it. Or that's something where I say, nope, that's not what I wanted. I actually wanted the mountain range to be untouched, but I wanted the forest to be cut. Okay. Which means if we want the mountain range to be untouched, we're going to put the mountain range on layer 2, just for now. We want the forest to be affected. Okay, so we can actually create a river that is still on the layer 0. And I can do this. And we're going to see it's not affecting the mountain range, but it is affecting the forest. Because if you think about kind of layering, we have a layer 0 that currently shares the forest and the river. And then we have a layer 2. It could be layer 1 as well, but now we have a layer 2. That is the mountains, which means they are not touching. Like visually they do, but logically they're not touching the mountain biome. And therefore we can exclude the mountain biome from being affected. Which in other words means that if I feel like, nope, I don't want the forest to be cut, I actually only have to move it away from the river. And now the forest actually overlaps the river as well. So if you want to have a river that just kind of bleeds out of a forest or bleeds out of a mountain range, you can do that. The same thing goes for paths. So let's say we have a set index 0 path. And we really like the way that everything is arranged here. So I would like to actually make a little path that goes between all those objects, right? I'm like, oh, this is my little trail here. Before our latest patch, that would actually had caused the biomes to be re-rendered, and you would be like, ugh! But now the mountains are different and the trees are different. I don't like any of that. And the saw the question, and now it is, you can separate it, and you can do the same thing again. If I take that one and I put the path on layer 3, so on top of everything else, it actually now affects does it affect? Wait. Oh, I might need to. Oh, it doesn't. Maybe on what is the mountains 2? So it is bugged. Set index 2. Blip. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So that is probably that is still a bit wrong. But that's exactly what I was talking about. You really want to have that properly done, and with the I think with the density stuff, it might have broken. So we're going to look into that. But the concept, I hope I didn't confuse you too much. The concept is basically what lies above things impacts the things that are beneath, and through this you can actually control whether or not something set index 3, yes, something is affecting our biomes. Let's put that back to 0 because I wanted to show something. Oh no, let's put that to 3. Let's leave it there. Another thing that we did is this is now kind of our tool is intelligent enough to decide that when you shift the biome, it's still being affected by things like rivers and paths, or I think it's not clever enough to detect the coastlines. That's still something that we need to do. But that's the general goal, so that when you have a biome and you shift it around, rivers, paths, and coastlines are going to affect the biome, so you can tweak and adjust. And now coming to the question that I just saw from Niklas, is the cut through still fine-tuned? It still seems to be quite wide. No, it's not fine-tuned enough. I agree with you. It is still quite wide. And what we're pondering is we're not sure whether we want to expose something like a slider to you, where you can actually define the cut-through offset, or if we're just going to play around and reduce the distance more and more until we're visually happy with it. But the question was, is it already fine-tuned? And the answer is no. The long answer is maybe we're going to hand that decision to you by exposing a slider. Okay, so there's a bunch of questions in here. Scale a biome down before using it. Like scale, Okay, so there is an unwanted behavior in our current build, and we need to talk a little bit about what you actually mean. So let's not select anything. So scaling down a biome, do you mean by just adjusting the brush tip? Because technically speaking, that is already working, although the space that is needed to create a biome, there is a minimum threshold. You can't go beneath it because the way that assets are sized and the way that our logic tries to place them onto an existing path simply says it doesn't help you very much to make a very thin line, because we cannot put assets on it unless probably you have more softness. No, that softness is just the brush softness. So just defining the brush tip, that has a minimum threshold, and in that threshold you can do something like that. Now when you select something and you scale it down, we're actually at the moment, let me double check, we're scaling the shape. So you can define whether or not you want a big or a small forest. The asset size itself will remain. Oh, this is going to break. No, it isn't. I'm quite happy. You mean the assets within the biome. Okay. I'm not sure. We had that discussion a couple of times, and I will honestly, I think I will leave that up to how vocal you guys are about whether or not you want that. because generally speaking, everything on those maps is more or less tuned to be balanced in terms of sizing and kind of in terms of aesthetic. And if there's one thing that artists hate, then it is giving the agency of rescaling or transforming assets to you guys. So at the moment, our artists are quite vocal about saying, no, they're designed for that size, so you should be using it at that size. But you can scale all the other stuff on our maps. Why not also allow it for biomes? And frankly speaking, I don't know what. So we either have to make it as a slider where you have like asset size somewhere in here, and you can just define the asset size through a slider, which we might do, or we might, which probably is the best way to do it now that I think about it, because a shortcut like keyboard shortcut might not be the best way to do it, because if you want to simply scale a biome, that's what you do with the keyboard shortcut and the mouse wheel already. If you just want to scale down the assets, having additional, yep. Okay, I'm going to write that down because I don't want to forget that. I'll put it into the team and we'll debate it. In terms of, I think it's easy to do. I don't think that it's a big thing to do. Because we also have the, come here. We also have the texture scale in there if you select texture brush in the biome. So why not have an asset scale in there as well? Okay. There you go. You sold me on it while I was live streaming. Nice. I sold myself on it? No, you did it. You did it. Right, by the way, if you haven't noticed, it's a small one, but I think it's an important one. We changed the color of biomes so that when you have a bunch of stuff on the map, it's much easier to figure out whether or not you are currently selecting a biome, or, as I did before, you're selecting a brush. So if it's yellow and it's a dashed outline, it means there's nothing more you can select inside of it. This is the single object. For example, if you try to select a tree, you can see it has the dashed outline and it is yellow. So there's not more. You can't go deeper into the tree to select stuff. The landmass is yellow, which means you have an entity selected that doesn't go deeper, but it is a solid outline, which means the landmass contains other selectable objects in there. And the same goes for the biome. The biome is purple because it is a special entity on the map. It has a solid outline, which says you can select more inside of it. And then you can click and you can select single things in there. And again, this is kind of usability. I think while you are inside a biome, so once you are there with the tree, come on, I want a tree. I think we want to stay inside the container until you escape out of it. But that's still work in progress. So that's not done yet. But that was another update that we currently did. And I was talking about I was talking about something and I wanted to showcase that to you because that also got released with the recent update. We have, I don't need that one. If you're super happy with that and you feel like, okay, I don't want to mess with that anymore. That biome is done and dusted. I'm happy with it. And I don't want to accidentally change something about the biome. We have introduced two buttons here, which I think are super helpful. The first one is Edit Biome, which we're going to dive into in a second. And the second is Dissolve Biome. Dissolve Biome means that the second you push that, you do not have a biome anymore. This is now dissolved into its components, and they are added to the map, which means that whatever you do to this, it's not going to change. If I'm going to edit the river, and I'm going to edit the river points, it's not going to, as you can see, it still updates this biome because it's affecting it, but it can't affect the forest biome anymore, simply because there is no biome. It can't be updated. This is now not one entity, but it is all the single entities placed directly on the map, which might be helpful if you just want to brush a couple more trees there, if you want to use the prop eraser for, oh, I'm scaling a tree there. If you want to use a prop eraser for some reason. So that's what this button does, right? Dissolve biome says, go away dynamic object, give me the single assets on the map. Okay. And the second thing that we did was, do I have, nope. Can I undo it? Yes, I think I can. Yeah, there you go. Okay. The second thing is simply the edit biome button. And I haven't fully tested. I just returned on Monday. So I have been testing this, but I haven't finished my testing. I'm not 100% sure that it is fully working. But the idea is that when you click on edit biome, it actually makes sure that all the presets that you have there, like for example, the brush opacity, which does not do anything at the moment. Yeah, okay. So there's still another forest in there. So that should probably update while you click around it. I always have to kind of initiate a re-render, but that should actually initiate the re-render directly. But the idea is that if I have that, and I'm happy with it, and now I go into edit biome and I start to add more stuff to it. In the previous iterations, it always defaulted back to the default settings, and all the changes that you made to texture opacity or texture scale or texture softness and all that things like density and so on and so forth, that reverted back, simply because we always went back to the default. Now when you select a biome and you click on edit biome, you actually have the settings that are baked into that biome, and you can modify the biome without accidentally also modifying the settings. Right. Let me check. Any more questions? Nope, doesn't look like. So let's look at the new biomes that we did. So there are 2 new biomes here, and I'm going to clean up here. And we're going to, do we want to, now we're going to look at the map that I did for those. Let's see. Takes a couple of minutes to load. No, not minutes, but seconds. It's a huge map. I've been testing the massive sizes, massive sized maps. I think I missed the question. Oh my God, can you just repost your question? Which is exactly about the dissolve button. Okay. Repost your question, please, so I can find it, and I'll do my best to answer it. Oh, making a biome persistent. I think that was the question, and the dissolve button probably has answered that. Okay, so I made a pretty big. As of now, we are able to transform a biome into single assets. Is this a workaround or the final concept for making biomes? So wait, we made biomes persistent. I'm not sure if you noticed, but I can show you here. Let's go into here. I think that one is a biome. So this biome is, and that's the best persistency we can offer. I just have to say that. If I think I know where you're going at, but that is extremely complicated and probably not going to happen simply because we, from a technical perspective, don't even have an answer to how to do that. So again, a biome is a shape. Like you define a shape and we are pre-filling it with assets. And when you add or subtract from that shape actually changes. So we need to initialize a re-render because there are a ton of edge cases where this shape changes its complete function from a U shape to a closed circle, things like that. So applying changes to the shape is always going to some degree initiate a re-render of the biome. And we, frankly speaking, have no good concept, or I know that Ilya said that it is doable, but I think it's simply just time consuming to a degree where I feel like, no, that doesn't justify putting so much time into something. What we did in terms of persistency was, as you can see, it has been re-rendering when you were actually interacting with it by making rivers through it or whatsoever. And the whole set index thing and the whole let me edit the biome. So if I add to that, it's good. Yeah, it's going to re-render because probably the changes do not take over properly. But long story short, that is basically what we can offer. We know that you guys have been asking for ways to make it persistent to a degree where each tree remains where it is, even though I subtract from that biome or I add to that biome. But it's unfortunately, it is too complicated to justify that we spend more time on that biome development for now. I hope that answered your question. Okay, so I promised you 2 new biomes and we're going to look at them. And the first one, I think you can already see, and that is we've used the kind of Arctic, the canyons. And we said, okay, I think the canyons actually are a really cool Arctic shelf biome, or kind of Arctic cliff biome that you can use if you want to create those vast ice landscapes. And it is also a precursor to us experimenting with water-based assets. So for now we said, okay, that's actually, that's an easy biome that we can add. I sat down with Jasmine and we reworked the existing assets to match a good color here. It's still broken, as you can see, because the rendering order is still a bit off. So Ilya is aware of that. That's on the bug list already. But generally speaking, this is the one biome that we're adding, but this is not the exciting biome that we're adding. The exciting biome actually sits down here, and we're going to look at that, and that is jungles. And I think we did an amazing job with jungles because we actually did something that makes them more rainforesty. And let's see if I can, let's just delete that one for now. Let's make a new one. Jungle. Okay, so we're going to ramp up the density to a max. We're going to ramp up the softness. Again, the softness is, let's increase the brush back to, let's say, 50. 25. So if you don't know what softness does, softness basically defines the amount of bleed out from a biome. Oh, now I've linked them all up. Jesus Christ. Okay, that's fine. Where can I show you? Probably here. So, this is a rainforest with 0 softness. And when I ramp up the softness, it is trying to bleed out more of the foliage, which means in that case my... Oh, don't jump around. There you go. So this is, let me deselect it so you can see. So there's a lot of small details at the edges and at the corners, which is the softness. And if I turn it down, it actually uses a lot more of that shape without trying to fill in those outside props, right? Okay. So the way that we constructed jungles is we actually, I think they work best with a lot of softness, because that has this untamed, wild approach to it. And Jasmine did an amazing job there. There is a tree outline that you could probably see if I reduce the softness. And Iliad also did an amazing job because he's still hiding that tree outline, but I think you can figure out where the tree outline is. There is a tree outline like the regular forests. Then we have those cool different color types of inside props. Then we're rendering clouds, rainforest clouds over them. And then we're adding those vine-hung branches that actually don't have a tree bottom. So they kind of feel like they're bleeding out over top of it. And by this, we create this feeling. You can, however, if you're not happy with our fog, you can actually remove it. So this is how it looks. This is how it looks if you just want a dense jungle forest. And if you activate the fog, then this comes back. We are also debating at the moment if we also give you a second slider that removes those treetops. I'm not sure because I think they make the jungle to jungle. But as always, this is work in progress. This is a back and forth until we fine-tune and adjust it to it. But I feel like this is an amazing and really cool new biome. And it looks quite nice. And this one actually, let's increase the softness. Let's edit it. Let's close the gap here because that will create more of that. Let's close that gap here. There you go. Let's close this gap here. Probably let's do something like that. And if you want to mix biomes, like for example, you're like, okay, this is pretty good, but what about this? We can either go in and close this completely, and it will try to do something like this. But you might want to mix different density biomes, and that again is something where you should use the set index. So I can now make a set index 1. But I'm going to reduce the density quite drastically, but I leave the softness ramped up. And now if I'm going to do this, you can see it's not, because this biome is a set index 1 biome, where the other one is a set index 0 biome. They're not conflicting. They're not trying to merge. So I can actually use that biome to fill up spaces here. And if I'm doing it right, they actually kind of bleed into each other. But I think if I have never done that. If I reduce, yep, they're not merging. As long as they're different entities, I can actually bring it down to set index 0, and I can kind of blend them into each other. Trevor has a question. Can we get fog assets like the jungle biome to place? Yes, you can. And I hope I'm not over-promising here, but I think they're already here. So you have jungle cloud 1, 2, 3, and then medium, 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 and small. And I think all the jungle assets that we used to create the jungle biome are now here. Let's see if I can find them by cloud 2, which would make a lot more sense. Yes. So there are actually a bunch more assets than we used for that. So if you want to kind of put them between the mountains. So here's the thing. The second we introduced those clouds, we were like, oh, we can do a lot with that. But we also have those overhead clouds that you can activate here. And we don't want to go full scale bonkers on clouds. So we're not sure if we want to include clouds into all the other biomes where we think it makes sense. Like, for example, I think in mountains they make a lot of sense. But this is more like a real world map or satellite view cloudscape. Let's turn it off again. Whereas those clouds are more like prop-based, you can place them yourself clouds. And once everyone's back at the table, we're going to actually open a discussion internally about that. You're more than welcome to give your feedback and your input. So if you start screaming, we want the clouds for mountains, then that is obviously going to happen. But otherwise, it is something that we will bring up in a group discussion internally. So if you put that mountain 2, set index 3, and scale it up a little bit, it's sitting over the whole mountain range. But if you reduce it to 0, it's probably going to vanish behind mountains. At least that's what should happen. But it's not, or I can't figure it out. Okay, clouds would be, yes, I think so too. Clouds would be really cool with mountains. And that's typical learning while we're doing stuff, where we're refining things, inventing new things, and then we kind of go back and look at where can it also work. But again, on a grand scale, it's not that sexy. If you look at that, it doesn't really look like a rainforest if you would be looking at the full world map here. I think that one actually might be better if you turn off the fog. Then it might look a lot more foresty. But on a zoomed in level, of course, it does look much better with the fog active. All right. I'm looking at my list. Is there anything else? No, I don't think so. I think we're done. So that's what's going to happen. So oh, right. No, there is. My apologies. Of course, I wanted to show you continent. I think that's how it works. It's still a bit workaround-ish because that is in development. Did I select something? No, I did not. Add to active region. Let's take that one. No, I wanted to take that one. Dissolve the biome. Which means we can actually, come on here. Delete that one. Let's select that one and add to active region. Okay, so you don't have to worry what I've been doing. I kind of needed to prepare what is going to come naturally once we're done with it, and that is looking at the way that we brought back the organized panel. So you might have noticed that somewhere between, I'm not sure when it was, February, March, this panel vanished because, oh yeah, right, it was around the time that we released the Flex update, because the Flex update broke it. And we weren't sure if it is simple to bring it back or if it's going to kind of bite us in the behind. But it wasn't that complicated to bring it back. So we're now bringing it back, which means you have this panel again, which will allow you to very quickly go into biomes and say, oh wait, there's a grassland biome. I can't remember. Oh right, that's that one. And as you can see, it selects the whole thing on the stage. And it should be, it's not working at the moment, but it should be decollapsible so that you can select the brush inside the biome or the props inside the biome. So there we have Rocky Mountains, jungle. We have a couple of formations. So formations are currently all formations, even if they are included in the biome, which I think needs to be cleaned out. So we have to say, no. If they're included in the biome, they need to be grouped in there. If they're excluded, it should only select those because those are the non-biome formations. Then we have the textures. So all the textures that are on the map. And I don't know what you think, but since we've changed the whole selection visuals, I think it's a lot more easy to grasp what you're actually looking at on the map, and I'm quite happy with the changes there. Environment, nice. What are you? Oh, okay, interesting. And that's probably still a tagging thing. So this is the last thing that I wanted to show in terms of what do I mean when I say we bring back that organized panel. The most complicated part about that one at the moment is to make sure that it is logically sound to someone who's looking at it and trying to figure out what do I want to select without being tedious when you try to go down a ton of decollapsibles and down into that folder structure to actually get something. So we think kind of 3 to a max of 4 sub-tiers is the most we want to go down. And now we're currently working on kind of grouping them up back in a way that they make sense when you're quickly looking for something. Because what you want to do is you want to go in there and you want to say, oh, this is a Rocky Mountain biome, or let's say this one here. Let's see what happens if I hide it. Do I hide it? No, I don't hide it. I think I hide something, but I can't see what I'm hiding. It might be just hiding the brush. I'm not sure. Jungle, come on, let's hide the jungle. No, it's not hiding anything. Okay. And locking things. So you're like, okay, I don't want to, whenever I click on it, I don't want to accidentally click the biome. So I'm going to lock it and it's not going to be selectable on the stage anymore. Thank you. Trevor says great updates, and I agree. I think a lot of the stuff that got out with 7.8 was already really cool. 7.9 is just, again, we're adding a couple more biomes to it, but primarily it is performance optimization, it is cleanup, it is improvements. And if you feel that something needs improvement, come to Discord. No one has posted our Discord at the moment. I'm going to do that. dungeonfog.com/Discord if you haven't known that you can find us there. So basically that's where you go and you can join our Discord and you can chat with Ilya and you can chat with me and you can chat with Andy and all the others who are working on this so that we are getting your input on what you like and what you dislike, because that is really, really important for us to actually to actually improve and get it to a state where everyone's happy with it. Right. With that said, I think all that's left to say is, give me a second, I want to go back to this one. Don't miss our Mapping It Out show. Don't miss our Mapping It Out show in September, because maybe we have already reached our internal closed beta milestone and we're happy with where we are. Maybe we have a couple of things that we want to finish up. But either way, I think we're going to have a couple of really cool announcements in terms of the battlemap editor integration that is secretly already ramping up in the behind the scenes, where Andy is already working with Ilya, because Andy is going to take over a huge part of that. He was the one who did the battlemap editor in the first place, so it is only logical that he is going to join the development team on the battlemap integration in Deios. And I'm so terrible because I'm just I can't do secrets. I wanted to keep that info for September the 24th, but that's fine. Now you know that. And more on that matter, I will tell you on September the 24th, and I hope you will all be there. And I hope you will love it as much as I do, because Nicholas asks, how is your feeling to put it out there soon? And if you mean by putting it out there to a broad audience, there is this, I think I've said that, I've told that story a couple of times. I was taking part in how you call those things, TED Talk, from a developer who's working in Silicon Valley. And he said, if you're not ashamed of the product that you put out, you have waited too long. And I think that very much describes the state that we're getting. I'm really proud. I think people will enjoy the state that the world map editor is in there. They will enjoy the state that the city map editor is in there. Is it perfectly polished? No, it isn't. Is it going to get better with each polish and update? I think you can all agree, and you all saw that over the course of the year so far, we made huge steps forward, and every update improves and improves and improves. So I think when we say that somewhere in fall or early winter, we're going to make it publicly available to a broader audience, we will be ashamed of some of the things that we put out there simply because we think we could make it better. But I think in general, it is in a state where we don't have to be completely ashamed of it, because it actually is becoming a really good product. And by what I see, what you post on Discord, when you share your maps, there's beautiful stuff in there where I think, okay, this is actually getting to a point where we can confidently say we can compete with map software out there, and we can make the better maps with it. Still, I fully take it when you say, yeah, but it's complicated, and yeah, it's not polished, and things might be a bit wobbly here and there. I'll take that. But generally speaking, it is already getting to really cool software, and I'm actually looking forward to it, and I'm excited about launching it to a broader audience by fall or early winter this year. And I hope you see it as we do, and I hope you help us with your feedback, and then we can make a really cool beta launch this year. Soon. Soon, TM. Right. Okay, guys. Thank you. Have a great evening, everyone, or day or morning, wherever you are. have a great time, and see you all on Discord, or see you all next time on September the 24th. Bye.